Hello, this is Paul Verkoven with Elk Spring Education, your place for real estate and financial know-how. And today, we're doing an Elk Spring tidbit on the uber competitive real estate market. You know, we've been seeing across the country in many markets, the real estate markets in the last few years becoming so competitive. Many places where there are multiple offers on homes selling super quickly. Some markets where people are trying to buy homes for months and can never seem to win. And so there's a lot of frustration with buyers in certain markets right now. There's people who are even just staying out of it because they're like, too crazy for me. But on the other hand, there are buyers who are thriving in these markets, doing super well, buying homes successfully. And what we want to do today in this tidbit is show you some of the secrets for how to win in an uber competitive market. And I would say one of the overall overarching ideas that we've seen with successful buyers in these markets around the country is number one, their willingness to take on specific tactics to beat out competition. Like it's a mindset of, I'm going to need to adopt some tactics to win. And the successful buyers are people who are taking on that mindset. And then the second thing that we've noticed as an overarching idea is that the folks who are successful right now are ones who are willing to adopt new approaches, right? They're willing to be creative in their approach and do things that no one else is doing, so that they're the offer that gets accepted, not the 12 that don't on a given property. So in our tidbit today, we're going to dive into some things we've watched people do that are new approaches and tactics to beat the competition. You know, and one of the first things to say here with your buyer's agent is you really want to look at the features of the agreement of sale that you draw up. Okay, there's a lot of things that you can do to make it appealing and even compelling in many ways besides price, okay? So you want to think about how do you turn the agreement of sale into something that compels the seller to take it, right? And so that means looking at every perspective, not just the price. It's about more than price. And so there's some simple things that you can think about that way. You know, one of them is things like the closing date. And I know there are a lot of people who make a mistake here and maybe don't check this out. You know, understanding what the seller's motivation is and mirroring your offer to what that is super important. You know, a lot of your competition won't do that. So if you take the time to find out what the seller wants in terms of the closing date, that can be very helpful. You know, another great one is the earnest money. The earnest money deposit is something that you make with the offer to show that you're serious about it. And this is an area that you can make an offer more compelling without changing the price. Like it doesn't cost you more towards the price of the home if you have a bigger earnest money deposit. So could you increase that? You know, if you were planning to put $10,000 in earnest money, what if you put $20,000 or $30,000? The bigger the number, the more compelling the offer. And I always like to say that it's easier to compel somebody than to convince them, right? So when you're looking at the agreement of sale with your buyer's agent, think about compelling. What little things can you do to be compelling? And remember that in this competitive market, the people who are winning are usually doing it by a nose, right? It's not that they're way ahead of everyone else. They have a price that's where it needs to be, and then they've got some of these little things that make all the difference in the world. So we're talking about nuances here that are the difference between, you know, winning or losing. It's like the Olympic gold medalist wins by, you know, fractions of a second. And that's kind of what you do when you're getting an agreement of sale together in this market. I want to say too that financialpro.info, the URL you see there, when we're finished with this tidbit, I'm going to ask you to spend just a couple seconds there to give 2 quick feedback questions, really, really fast. There's also the ability to order some free info. If you just write in one of the boxes there, how to win, we'll send the full report with all of these strategies to you, free. There's no obligation. Nobody's going to hound you after you request that. It's just a more in-depth look at some of the stuff we're doing today. How to win. If you just write that in at financialpro.info, we'll get that out to you. So talking about the agreement of sale and ways to make it compelling, you know, you want to think about your other contingencies too. For example, the inspections. What can you do to make those more compelling? So one possibility is to make the amount that you're willing to accept in repairs or problems higher, right? maybe even considering removing them. Like, is it possible to not do certain inspections, or to do them before making an offer if you have the time? It's not always possible. But, could you, when you look at a home, bring a qualified professional with you to give you a good idea of what its condition is? It may not be as in-depth as full inspection. And, this depends on your risk tolerance. There's not a right or wrong here. But I do think that the more that you can do to sweeten the inspections, the better. And you'll be up against folks who might be removing them or might be making the deductible that they're willing to accept super high. So you want to think about that when you're crafting a compelling offer. How can you make those contingencies as compelling as possible? Here's another one around these things, the contingencies, is speed. So the faster that you can get things done, the safer the seller finds your offer and the more compelling it is. So for example, if you can get a home inspection done in 3 days rather than 10 days, that's more compelling to the seller, because if there's going to be a problem, no sooner. So for example, you could call a home inspector before submitting your offer and schedule an appointment so you know you have it on the books, rather than trying to negotiate the offer, call up the inspector, play phone tag, they're busy for 3 days, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. It's more compelling to come in like, hey, here's our offer, we already have the inspection scheduled for the day after tomorrow, and we'll remove the contingency in 3 days. Those are things that you can do to make it compelling, even if you're doing inspections. Same thing with financing. Can you work with your lender, not just have a pre-approval, all your competition is going to have a pre-approval. What can you do to make yours more compelling? What if you could say, you know what, the appraisal and the full contingency will be removed within 7 days. So there are lenders who can do that in this world, and if you need help finding one, you can request that on the site too. It often makes a difference. 7 days from now, everything's done. Will make a huge difference in making your contingencies more compelling. Okay, so those are just some thoughts there. There's also this issue about price, right? You gotta pay the price to win. Because if somebody offers 10 grand more than you, you might have a really compelling set of contingencies, but the seller's going to be like, yeah, I want the 10 grand. So there's this thing about making sure the price is in line, but of course, who wants to pay more than they have to? Nobody. So one thing that you can do with your buyer's agent is talk about the idea of an escalation clause in your agreement of sale. An escalation clause is something that allows your price to be bid up, if necessary, without having to go back and forth with counters. And again, talk to your buyer's agent. What makes the most sense depends on the market you're in and the specific property, right? Your buyer's agent is the person who will know which of these strategies is smart. But what we have seen is that many successful buyers in these markets are using escalation clauses to be able to make sure that their price is in line. You don't want to get your rest of your offer real sweet and then bundle it because you're off by 2 grand in the price. You know what I mean? That's a big disappointment that you can just avoid by using an escalation clause. The last part of this too is, how can you be compelling to the seller? There's also the part of this that's just making it more human, okay? How can you make your offer more human? Seller's a human being. If you can speak to them that way, you can often develop the nose, the extra tenth of a second that helps you win. So for example, you could do things like write a letter to the seller, a letter from the heart, telling them about why that home would be so important for you and for your family, what it would mean, what you love about it. We've seen buyers doing that successfully. Recording a video, if you're not camera shy, is a great thing. Just do a quick video and just tell the seller, how much it would mean for you and your family if you had this home. All of that stuff can be really effective in getting the nose against the competition, right? How can you speak to the seller directly on a human level? And then the final thing is you can also use logic. There's the mammal brain in the seller that when you sort of talk about, why you love the home and do a video, you're appealing to the maybe more emotional side. But there's also the seller's reptile brain, and you want to be talking to the logical side. So there's some things you can do there too to prove your finances just a little bit better than everyone else. Everyone you compete against will have a pre-approval letter, but there's nothing that says, for example, that you couldn't also submit a copy of your credit report or credit scores with your socials blacked out, all the identifying info. You could do that. Now again, remember I said people who are winning are willing to adopt new approaches. things that might be a little bit different, a little outside the comfort zone, a little outside the norm, but it's to make what you do stand out. Could you send copies of pay stubs or even asset statements with, again, identifying info blacked out, but enough to show them, like, yeah, here's my lender's pre-approval, but look, here's the rest of the picture. I've seen some clients be successful by submitting an actual financial statement that they sign off on. Again, just extra things, little noses that make it much more compelling. Because what happens in the end is the seller is going to be looking at, if there are multiple offers, they're going to be looking at several offers next to each other. And if the prices are within $1,000 or $2, at that point they're looking for other things that make them feel secure, feel like they've been communicated with, feel like you're serious, feel like you're better qualified, and if there's a problem, it's going to get addressed more quickly. That's what you want to create. So you can do a lot by willingly sharing information in a safe way, not but in a way that is something that wasn't asked for, very compelling. So these are some ideas in our tidbit today about how to make your offer more compelling to a seller and win. Be the person who gets the house, not one of the 12 who didn't. So financialpro.info. Please take a second there, just 2 quick feedbacks, and if there's anything you want to request, you can do that there too. And that's our tidbit for today. Thank you so much.